have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it, folks. As we push our way through, we're halfway through October. I hope everything's working out well for everyone. As we all push through to try to reach our end of year goals, I hope these last few months are good to you. And I'd like to hope that they're good to me too. All of you know sort of the rocky path that I've been following since June in terms of my own real estate goals. Still kind of pushing through all that stuff, getting past it. And I hope you guys all are too. I realize that I'm not the only one who runs into troubles. And I hope that all of you are able to navigate them. Things are kind of coming back together here in terms of what I'm doing. Now, luckily for me, the market is continuing to shine on my house, or at least the market that I'm in. So I still feel like I'm in a pretty good place. Now, because I like to hold myself accountable, I did say that I thought October would be the month where we saw the beginning of the decline in the stock market. Now, we've still got half a month to go. And from everything I've read, that still remains a possibility. But boy, I've been reading an awful lot of articles from an awful lot of really smart folks who are talking about nothing but expected good things coming from the market for the foreseeable future, at least halfway into 2018. So there's always that possibility I will end up being wrong, that October of 2017 will not be that month when folks look back and say that was the beginning of when things started to decline. And one of my goals was to have my property sold before the end of October because I felt like that was a very high possibility. No matter how you slice it, though, I do feel like we are hitting a plateau in terms of prices. It just seems like these numbers cannot continue to grow as they are, and there's too many factors that are potentially plugging into our market that would indicate a downturn. Although then you read articles that potential buyers are feeling more optimistic about jumping out and buying. So who knows? The market may turn on a dime and change before our very eyes. And of course, we'll keep track of that here. And as interesting things happen in the marketplace, we'll try to point them out because our goal is, as it always is to try to tell the future a little bit. I'm not worried about, I know there's a lot of folks out there who I'll talk to frequently who go, why do you take the risk of actually making a suggestion that something is going to happen, right? Because then if it doesn't happen, you end up looking like a fool. Well, you know what? I think if you're going to go out there and try to make reasonable, try to reasonably anticipate what's going to happen, and you do it as frequently as I tend to do, you're going to end up being wrong at some point. So I'm okay with that. The answer isn't necessarily wrong. It's just an opportunity to try to figure out what data you missed that should have been things to indicate a more robust marketplace. My timing may just be off. It just may end up that October isn't the month we start to see a decline. But at the same time, so many folks are writing articles about how robust the market is and how we're going to see all this growth going on into 2018. There's an awful lot of folks who know what they're talking about, who are talking about how overvalued the market is. And all of these things could play into a real estate downturn. All right, so that's interesting stuff to keep in your head. And I always suggest folks kind of keep a side glance eye on the market to try to get a feeling. A lot of things can be extrapolated from the market in terms of optimism. If you're starting to, because the things that fuel the real estate market oftentimes grow from that, right? One of the things that I've talked about for a long time is in order for there to be a robust real estate market in terms of having buyers, there needs to be employment, right? And it needs to be not just any kind of employment. It needs to be house buying style employment. It needs to be career style employment where folks can afford to amass a down payment, make that down payment, and then service the indebtedness that they take on because of that home. All right. I am also toying with a new thing. I want to make the Rebel Underground more valuable to those of you who have joined. You know, you went out of your way to let me know, yeah, you know what, I want more from you. You are the folks who have actively told me you want more. And for those of you who've been in it from the beginning, you know that I have not dropped an awful lot of stuff. So what I'm thinking about doing is sort of on a once a month basis, going to some of these markets we talk about and pulling out properties that are currently listed. And I'm thinking about pulling out maybe one of each category, maybe a condo style property, a single family residential property, and a multi-unit, and going through the process of drilling down and analyzing those properties and making them a video that you can see so that you can see what I'm doing and what tools I'm using for that. And of course, you are still going to get that video I've been promising forever relating to doing a property specific value analysis or analysis on whether or not you want to purchase it. We did the big picture one that helped you drill down to sub-markets or communities within larger areas that you might want to focus your efforts on. And I do promise that stuff is coming. For those of you who've been listening for a long time, you know that it's been kind of a roller coaster ride for me in terms of stuff going on with me. So time has been a difficult one. If you are a brand new arrival to the show, maybe this is your very first show, you should know that under normal circumstances, this show is Monday through Friday. It's every day, Monday through Friday, a show gets published. As of a couple of weeks ago, I let my listeners know that was going to get truncated a little bit. It was going to get cut back to about 3 days a week, sometimes 2 days a week, simply because of the amount of free time I don't have. So it's one of those things where I'm trying to balance all those things. I do see a light at the end of the tunnel, probably sometime right after the new year, where we'll be able to go back to the regular schedule. But just wanted to let everyone know that's the normal plan. So normally I'm able to ride right along with all of you for your morning commute, or maybe at lunchtime, or maybe on your way home from work, whenever you happen to decide to consume real estate realities. Normally I'm there daily. So just for those of you who are brand new. And of course, this is not new information for those of you who've been around forever and you know who you are. All right. So let's jump into this list. This is kind of an interesting one. I'm a big fan of exploring markets that are very friendly to the first-time investor, because we want the odds to be in our favor, right? We talk a lot here about getting ground truth, knowing your local markets, and that's important stuff. It's good to know what areas you want to avoid, what areas are going to give you the least amount of headaches in terms of other things you can't control, right? I'm always a little bit more anal retentive when I'm analyzing a property based on things I can't control, right? I can control what color paint gets painted on the property. I can control whether or not there's going to be a washer and a dryer in a unit that I plan to rent, right? I can control whether or not I blow out a wall to make a space bigger. What I can't control is the crime that's going on in the neighborhood. I can't control what the neighbors do with their trash on their front lawn, or how many cars they have parked on their front lawn, right? Those are things I cannot control. Now, if you as a person who really is getting the ground truth knows that a piece of property may be next door to someone like that, or maybe in a neighborhood that faces those kinds of challenges, but you also know that it is a neighborhood that is on its way up, that things are starting to shake there, and that you could purchase now at a pretty deep discount and enjoy a pretty robust growth in value over the next couple of years, and also see a big improvement in the kind of tenant you could draw, which would improve, obviously, the amount of rent you can charge. Well, great, but that hinges again on having that ground truth. So it's always nice when you can try to focus on areas where some of that homework has been done for you. You still need to get ground truth. You still need to understand some of the big picture items, but there's plenty of folks out there that are trying to get your attention in terms of telling you where some really good places are that they see on the radar for you to invest. So one of the things I like is keeping in mind barrier to entry, right? We all know that the average home in the United States is over $200,000 now. And that's a difficult nut to swallow for a lot of folks in terms of what they'd have to come up with as a down payment. So I really like areas that hover at that amount or lower, particularly when they're linked with really good price growth. But not just price growth, because remember, I'm not someone who thinks that you should necessarily just ride the wave of appreciation. I think that you should also add value to the property and then pull value out of it, right? There's the BRRRR strategy, the buy, remodel, rent, refinance, repeat model. That's a great model. It goes around. If you ever want to learn more about that, it's one of those things it's putting a name to what people have done forever. But I know the folks at Bigger Pockets talk a lot about it. There's tons of YouTube videos. There's some great content creators on YouTube, by the way. There's a young guy doing stuff in, I think, London, Ontario, Canada. That's doing some interesting stuff, and all of his stuff is hands-on things he's doing, and I think that's great to check out. So maybe you want to do a search on London, Ontario investing for real estate, and I'm sure you'll find him. I'm sorry, I don't have his name. Maybe I can track him down and share it with the group. But in any event, the goal here is to be able to jump into markets where you can get your money working harder for you. So the folks over at 10X have come up with a list. The headline for them is Texas cities dominate 10X's fall 2017 list of hottest single-family markets. So yes, I've given away the sexy part. There's a lot of these properties or these areas are in Texas. They're the same Texas locations we've talked about in the past in terms of lists like this. I think the last one we did, it may have been from Home Union, and I don't remember what it was. Was it return on investment or growth? I can't remember. But what was bizarre was Texas was suspiciously absent from a lot of the top spots on their list. So it's interesting to see that this particular bit of research is pointing out much more attention to Texas. We'll go ahead and cover these five. The item 4 and 5 are not in Texas, so we'll talk about them. But they're not strangers to us. These are all markets we've talked about that have shown up as great places to go based on other folks' data, like Home Union has talked about them in terms of other data that we've looked at. Now, remember, 10X is a real estate marketplace style website. I'm always looking for potential bias being built into these, so it's something to keep in mind as you look at some of these. Now, according to this, let me just hit one thing here. I wanted to kind of hit the methodology. Sales and pricing activity on the 10X platform provides real-time insight into buyer demand and price appetite, particularly among real estate investors. Combining past and current housing trends with its economic growth forecast, 10X regularly ranks the nation's largest 50 housing markets for performance potential. So remember, this is another forward-looking report. So this is one that's telling us where to buy now to get performance once you've purchased. The rankings that they use consider pricing, sales, affordability, and permit activity, as well as economic and demographic growth. Since the record rankings are forward-looking, 10X also considers economic forecasts, population trends, and future growth prospects weighed against potential volatility. So this is an interesting list, and it's actually a list of 50. And again, there's interesting lessons learned by the places that are at the bottom of this list. Because remember, what this list is trying to tell us, or what it's trying to do, the horizon it's trying to look over is invest here to be happy a year from now that you did, right? And these are our bread and butter. These are the lists we love. But what's super interesting is some of the ones that are at the bottom of the list. So let's go ahead and hit the bad news first before we take a break. Coming in at number 45 on the list. This one's a little bit interesting because if I remember correctly, this one actually showed up in the top 10 of one of our lists of places to invest. This was a while ago, though. This was probably about 6 months ago. But remember, we had that list that kind of blew me away a little bit, where places like Detroit tended to be in the top 5 or 10 of this list. This city is Chicago, Illinois, another place that I'm not jazzed about, and for reasons that aren't too unusual to figure out. I mean, the crime rate there is crazy. I think knowing the ground truth of where you can and can't invest is just ridiculously important. Number 6 on the list. These next two are going to be hilarious. Number 6. Well, okay, so number 46 on the list, right? So as we get to the worst, Northern New Jersey, and let's just go ahead and blend number 46 and 47. Northern and Central New Jersey are rated as number 46 and 47 in terms of the worst places to invest. And let's make sure we're clear. These are places where if you bought today, a year from now, you probably wouldn't be horribly happy about it. Number 48 on the list is Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles has seen a ton of growth, and what really amazes me is the conversations we were having about Los Angeles 2-3 years ago, where ridiculous deals could be had. And one of the folks that we talked to years ago, James Festini, is actually in southern LA, I think, or is he in northeastern San Diego? But we talked about his marketplace and how great deals could be found. Clearly, that's not being reflected, at least in the Los Angeles numbers, according to this report. Number 49 on the list, so the second worst place for you to buy, San Francisco, California. We've talked about this tons, and if you think that somehow you're going to ride this magical wave of appreciation, we already talked about how there is no way that you could purchase a property in San Francisco right now, or at least on average, right? If you go for the average price and the average rent, you'd need to be able to charge twice the rent that you could get, right? So in other words, I believe when we did the 1% rule on the San Francisco properties that are typically available, we found that we would need to make $4,000 a month in rent, and what you would actually make for homes like of the size we were talking about was $2,000. So it just wasn't anywhere near close enough. In fact, I think the range was even bigger than that. I think we'd have to make $4,700, and $2,000 was what we could really realistically make. So that's number 49 on the list, second worst. The number one worst, number 50 on the list, San Jose, California. My stomping grounds. Went to San Jose State University, grew up in San Jose, went to Limbrook High School, which is extreme West San Jose. San Jose is nuts. It is absolutely bonkers. But because I've got a little bit more practical experience with San Jose, while San Jose deserves to be 50th on this list, if you are someone who is really familiar with flipping, I mean, you can really make things happen. You go in there and you can really turn a property around that has challenges from bottom to top. Some good deals can still happen. I have a friend of mine who's investing in a property in downtown San Jose, and it is in need of everything. But when he goes in and does his thing, he's going to have a property that's going to be instantly worth about 30% more than what he paid for it. So there is still room to do your thing, but it's very, very difficult to do. So take that as a warning. So let's go ahead and hit the top of the list. We'll do the top 5 cities that you should be looking at right now for potential investing right after this break. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right. Aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are going over what the folks at 10X are saying are locations you should be focusing on if you want to invest and reap the greatest rewards. They've got some good little spiels here on each of the areas. So once we go over the numbers, we'll go ahead and read what they give in terms of just sort of a descriptive summary of those areas. And maybe it's good for me, and I'd love to get feedback from you all. And again, I really appreciate those of you who join the Rebel Underground. Now, if you want to join the Rebel Underground, you can simply text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. Or you can go to the show notes, go to therebelbroker.com, go to the show notes for any show and click the Join the Rebel Underground button. And I promise I will put a Join the Rebel Underground button somewhere at the top of the page, independent of specific show notes. I've had a few of you ask about that. I apologize for not being self-promoting enough in terms of the Rebel Underground. But my question to you is, as folks who either are in the Rebel Underground or are thinking about it, would it be valuable for me to link video? And again, remember, these are plans that I'm making. This isn't something I can start doing immediately. I want to grow the show. I want to give you what you need for success. But the timing is probably going to be right around the beginning of the new year. But anyway, if I do a show like this, in terms of just added value for you, what would be that added value? Would it be more audio only stuff that talks more in depth about these markets? Or would it be a YouTube video that only you can see as a member of the Rebel Underground that goes into detail on how I'm analyzing that area or properties I'm seeing or actions that you could take as an active investor? And maybe from a more investment-minded standpoint, maybe less single-family residential, maybe more multifamily, because the more and more I do the math, the more it makes sense to do multifamily if it's something that you're comfortable with taking on. So anyway, give me feedback on that. You can give me that feedback at therebelbroker.com. Just click on contact in the menu bar, send along those suggestions or your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. And I know I say this a lot, but I honestly, truly want to make this an experience where you benefit, where you're getting tools that help you achieve your goals. And one of the best ways for me to figure out what those tools need to be is to figure out what your needs are. And the only way I can figure that out is if you tell me. So communication is the best place to start. Do that, and I promise I will move in that direction. Okay, so pushing right on through. Let's start with number 5 on this list. And there's going to be ones on this list that I think are cautionary tales as well, and maybe just this one, but that I would absolutely subscribe to the idea of getting your ground truth going on. The first one on our list is Tampa, Florida. I like Tampa. We had a guest on the show that we interviewed from Tampa not long ago. I believe it was our mobile home guy. Who was talking about mobile homes, investing in mobile homes as a multi-unit investment. And I lived in Tampa for a little while. So I kind of like the community. I think it would be great. I actually did quite a bit of legwork in Tampa while I was there in terms of looking at investment properties. Don't look for me to give you any current insights. This was back in 1992, 1993. When I was doing this. So it's been a long while ago, but I can see where Tampa would be a draw. It's not as nuts as Miami. It tends to be less victimized by nature. It has its elements, but it seems like a good place in terms of stability. Now, the median home price there is also good. $196,318 is the median home price. Now, remember, this is single-family residential numbers, so just kind of keep that in mind. Now, the home price growth annually there has been 12.1%, so that's pretty respectable. Anything, as far as I'm concerned, anything over 10% is a thumbs up. In terms of just how much appreciation you'd like to get. I'm not a live and die by home price growth guy. I am much more, the things that would sway me far more are some of the demographic things they talk about in terms of employment, folks being there. I want my renters, right? I want my renters not only to be there, I want them to be needing a place to stay that I can provide. And I want enough demand for the rental product that my rent can be sustained and that there are jobs plentiful enough that folks can pay the rent, right? That's, as a guy who would prefer to have that model where something just keeps paying me every month, that's really more what I'm looking for. By the same token, I don't want a home to purchase as an investment that statistically is more likely to lower in value over time than increase, because not only are you losing that investment, right? And I've had some people argue, well, what's the problem if you're making the rent? Well, the problem is if the price drops enough, your rent is going to have to drop, right? Because if it becomes that much easier to acquire a property in that area, well, people will just do that. Once that barrier to entry for them is lowered low enough, they're going to jump in and purchase. And so you're going to be losing renters in that kind of a marketplace. Now, the home sales growth in that area is 1.8%. That's a little bit low, but it's not horrible. And it's a positive number, so that's also good. Number 4 on our list is Columbus, Ohio. Columbus has been on tons of our lists. It's another community that comes in at under the average in terms of average price for a single-family residential home. That price is $199,806. Home price growth annually has been 9.2%, with home sales growth of 1.6%. Number 3 on our list, and this is where Texas starts to dominate. And this is a community we've talked about before. Number 3 is Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas is huge. The metroplex is gigantic. There's tons going on there. In terms of the demographic things we talked about a minute ago that I think are critical to sustaining a robust rental marketplace, Dallas has got it. It has other challenges we've talked about, like their pension problem and other city-related things. But in terms of the draw that they have, Dallas has seen lots of growth, improvements in employment. They've had the best employment numbers throughout. Texas has always kind of blown out every other state in terms of being able to maintain higher employment. So in terms of that kind of stuff, good news from Texas. Now, the annual price growth in homes was at 9.9%, and home sales growth, the number of homes sold, is at 2.7%. So it's still a growing market there. Now, in Dallas, Texas also comes in with a median home price of $231,503. So it is the only community on our list that's over that $200,000 mark. But still, it's the marketplace there is robust enough in terms of the kinds of rental strength that I think it would be a good place to go. And remember, it doesn't have to be right there, Dallas, Texas. I think it could be any of the communities that border Dallas that are convenient for commuting and whatnot that would make them a sexy option. Number 2 on our list, Fort Worth, Texas. Again, coming in under that $200,000 median home price mark at $191,549, with home price growth of 10.8% annually, which again, great number. Home sales growth is also 2.5%. So the number of homes getting sold is at 2.5%. San Antonio, Texas. Median home price there, $176,630. And with the second best home price growth annually, 11.2%, with home sales growth of 2.6%. And San Antonio, I was talking to someone about San Antonio today. And you know what? All of the things I have to say about San Antonio should not sway you away from it at all. I went to a wedding there once, and they had to have the wedding at 9 p.m. after the sun went down because it's so oppressively hot in San Antonio. And even at 9 o'clock, and this wedding went from 9 o'clock, or the reception went from 9 o'clock till midnight, even in the middle of the night, humidity was ridiculous. It was the hottest, sweatiest, most humid experience of my life, and I despised it. But you know what? I'm not looking at these properties for me to live in San Antonio. I'm looking at these properties for the people who already live there, who are already acclimated, who will look at me and call me a wuss because I can't handle their weather, who are going to stay there and they're going to work there and they're going to be perfectly happy. So it's one of those rules that I think that investors need to get over. And it also comes when you renovate a property that you're going to treat as an investment. Too many investors get this in their heads, which is you're thinking like you're going to live there. You're doing a renovation based on what you would do if you're going to live in the unit. So, and this is a great thing you'll catch in an awful lot of advice videos that you'll find on YouTube relating to this. You don't put in the granite countertops. If you're going to flip it, well, yeah. If you're trying to cater to a buyer, but if you buy into a property and you want it to be positive cash flow, you want to make the minimum amount of upgrades you need to draw the best renters. So if you have stuff that's absolutely in horrible, horrible shape, yeah, you have to do something about that. But that doesn't mean you go with the highest quality stuff throughout that you can. It doesn't mean that you rip out all those kitchen cabinets. Maybe it means you just sand them, paint them, and put new doors and drawers on them. Because you're going to rent it. You're not going to be living in it yourself. And along those same lines, even though I have horrible weather memories of San Antonio, there are plenty of people who live there, enough of them that support a robust rental market, 11.2% home price growth. So go for it. Just because you own it and just because you rent it doesn't mean you need to live there. So keep that in mind when you are analyzing these things. And particularly if you do, and this is, this isn't a small thing. I have had investor clients who bought a property that could have been easily a very just ridiculously good cash flowing property at a great return on investment. But they went in there and they did all the things to the property. They weren't planning to flip it. They were planning to rent it. And they went in there and did all the things they would do to it if they were going to live in there. So they put all this beautiful stuff. It wasn't just new flooring. It wasn't just new carpeting. It was new exotic wood, hardwood floors, right? It was completely remodeled kitchen. It was completely remodeled master bathroom. It was all things that worked, but just weren't the newest that were upgraded. So they spent all of this money, and suddenly they were so proud of the return on investment numbers. And I said, well, wait a minute. All you've got are your acquisition costs in here. How much money did you spend on the remodel? And then they told me how much they spent, and they spent way, way too much. And I said, well, you have to figure that in. That's money you spent on that remodel. So if you stick that into the spreadsheet, what do we get? And suddenly their return on investment was low single digits. So yay, I mean, they're going to get return on investment, but the money they spent, literally the money they spent on that remodel, we could have purchased another property with 20% down in a lower priced community. So now they'd have two properties that are generating income. So that's how bad it can get. So just kind of keep that in your head. All right. So now as we go through this 10X story, let's go ahead and read what they had to say about these top 5 markets. So on San Antonio, they discuss it and say the San Antonio housing market continues to impress, with home sales outpacing the U.S. rate, despite actual slowing down from the second quarter of 2017. Home prices were nearly double the national average, surging to about 36% above their prior peak. Despite these trends, homes in San Antonio remain very affordable and have historically shown less downside risk compared to the rest of the United States, a positive sign for continued price appreciation. Healthy population gains and strong economic forecasts should drive housing demand in the coming years. If the fallout from Hurricane Harvey thins out an already tight construction labor market, San Antonio could be in for even tighter inventory and substantial price gains. So that was their take on San Antonio. Fort Worth. I don't know a lot about Fort Worth. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Fort Worth's housing market remains white hot, with home sales nearly doubling the U.S. pace. Annual price growth has also outstripped the U.S. average since the beginning of 2014, with this quarter's 10.9% price increase, the 5th straight double-digit gain for the area. I would start asking myself if you wouldn't be getting in at the top of Fort Worth, given that being the truth. So I'd want to look at some data and make sure that the things that are feeding that growth continue to exist. Home prices are now at an all-time high and nearly 50% above their prior peak. Also, warning bells go off with that statement. An overheated market has yet to become a concern, as prices are still very affordable and historically have shown only modest downside risk. Solid economic and population growth are expected to propel the market forward, as Hurricane Harvey could tighten inventory and boost home prices. I'd look a little more carefully at Fort Worth before I jumped in based on that. Dallas. The Dallas market continues its amazing performance. While the home sales rate has declined slightly from last quarter's pace, it is still on track to surpass prior peaks and is more than double the nationwide rate. Home prices also continue to outperform the national average, rising to more than 50% above their pre-recession peak. Like other Texas cities, prices remain very affordable, with room to grow and only slight downside risk volatility. Dallas has also seen a substantial increase in housing permits in recent years, although construction activity could slow due to rebuilding efforts in and around Houston. The area's superior economic outlook and demographic trends could bolster housing demand in coming years. So what that tells me is you may see less growth, which would increase the potential demand or put more stress on the existing inventory in the near term. Because of folks going off to Houston to get work done. So that would spell to me that in the nearer term, you could make this an investment that might work well for you. You could go in there, get things done, rent it. Demand might increase as fewer units come online, since construction might be slowed as efforts are moved to Houston. And then once you get closer to Houston being settled, you would start to see an uptick in the amount of properties being built. And so you might want to adjust accordingly. You might want to make that your window, right? That time where you've now rented it for a period of time, and maybe you sell it when it hits the peak, just as things are getting done in Houston. Columbus Columbus housing market has made impressive progress, with sales up 1.6% from 1 year ago and now within 10% of their pre-recession peak. Home prices surged to an all-time high of nearly $200,000, up 9.2% from 1 year ago and 25% more than their prior peak. The market has plenty of room to expand as homes are extremely affordable and prices are experiencing only modest volatility, supported by healthy population gains and a strong economy. I want to know more details about that. Why are we seeing population gains and what makes the economy in Columbus strong? Okay, Tampa is the last one. The market continued its prolonged recovery from the Great Recession. While home sales dipped from cyclical highs last quarter, they outpaced the U.S. rate and are within 20% of their pre-recessionary peak. Home price gains are nearly double the U.S. pace and have seen 9 straight quarters of double-digit increases, yet prices are still below pre-recession peaks and remain affordable for many buyers. Robust demographic trends and a solid economic forecast give the market a great future, with prices likely to receive an additional boost in the wake of Hurricane Irma, which will tighten housing inventory. All right, so we've covered that. I hope that's been valuable for you. So what's the point of this? What's the action item? Head on over to Trulia, Zillow, Redfin, whatever your favorite site is, or maybe you want to go to Home Union and look for specific prepackaged investment opportunities, or 10X, which is something they also do. I don't suggest limiting yourself. Go to all of those and start looking. Take a look. Go and watch. If you're a member of the Rebel Underground, go back and watch that video that I put out about how to drill down to specific neighborhoods and areas within these metros. Figure out where the good investments are and see what you can find. You may just find yourself an investment that's going to fit perfectly with what your strategy is. All right. Some other little tidbits of news I wanted to share with the group. Builder confidence increased to 68 in October. That is good news. We always like to see builders' attitudes changing or improving, but even more interesting would be a change in actions. Are they actually building? Are we seeing an increase in the number of architects that are employed that are doing buildings? Are we seeing permit improvements? Now, I didn't get any new permit numbers, but I did see that the costs of lumber have gone up, which indicates that the demand has gone up. So that is a good sign. And that is all for today, folks. Thanks again for listening. I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I have to say on all these subjects. And my goal with every show, honestly, is to leave more value on the table for you to benefit from than the amount of time you invested in the show. And I truly hope that we've achieved that today. Thanks again for listening, everyone. I'll talk to y'all next time.